So Framework makes a really cool computer, but what about when you compare it to things like this? Let's talk about it. So there's the obvious factors. This framework is very repairable. These not so much. The MacBook, the least of the three. The Blade, well, there's some level of repairability to it. You can swap out the drive in here. You can swap out the RAM. You could replace the battery. You could replace the screen. It's just going to be a bit difficult. The Framework, well, if you're not familiar with them, they are modular computers. As an example, this is just a little microphone module that I made that slots right in here. I know some of you guys probably want to know what this little microphone sounds like. Why don't we use it to talk about today's sponsor? FlexiSpot. Did you know the average American sits for 10.4 hours a day? Alternating between sitting and standing is important for your back, cardiovascular health, digestion, and more. That's why I use a standing desk. So if you're looking for the next upgrade at your home or office, FlexiSpot has you covered. Their standing desks are built with 100% recycled materials, so you can feel good about your purchase. One of the best features of FlexiSpot desks is their construction. These desks are incredibly strong and sturdy, offering warranties up to 10 years, giving you peace of mind.
It's pretty strong.
FlexiSpot desks also come with programmable presets for different height settings, so you can easily switch between sitting and standing without any hassle. The motors are strong, smooth, and quiet. Whether you're working or gaming, you can find the perfect position at the touch of a button. Upgrade your home or workspace with FlexiSpot today. Check out the link in the video description to learn more and find the perfect desk for you. Thanks to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. You can replace any of these ports with like HDMI or whatever. This is a really cool one called the dongle hider, where you can put like a mouse dongle inside of it, slide it in there, and then it's built into your computer and you still have a usable USB port. But you can take this entire computer apart with one tool, and then this whole thing comes open. All of these parts are labeled, they have QR codes. Basically anything in here is pretty easy to interchange, including the whole motherboard. I actually swapped the entire motherboard out on this exact one in like 5-ish minutes. Very, very little effort. You change out the speakers, the battery, there's instructions how to do all of it. It's really cool. So this is designed to be a modular and repairable laptop. That's its whole thing, which is honestly pretty sweet. Of course, there are sacrifices to make that possible. It is not as premium feeling or as tight tolerances as some other things. You're not going to be able to use up every single, air bubble of space in this like they have on the Mac. I mean, these things are like jam-packed tight. The speakers are very underwhelming. The screen is pretty underwhelming. They do have a better screen coming for this, which is a 120 hertz screen. I'm really looking forward to that. But it is pricey, and some of those quality of life things are just not quite as good. But that also isn't the end of the world. There is a reason to like this thing. So between these computers here, this actually does sit right in the middle in terms of price. It's more expensive than you would think it is. With this configuration, I'm using the AMD 7840U. I've got 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte SSD, a handful of modules. I want to say it was like maybe $1,500, something in that range, $1,500–1,600, which is not cheap for integrated graphics. In fact, it starts to encroach upon the price tag of this, which is a M3 Pro MacBook Pro. Great speakers, great webcam, great microphone, just all around really good machine, but when it's dead, it's dead. And then you have to buy another, almost couple $1,000 machine. So the MacBook, while it is definitely a better performing and feeling computer, in the long term does cost significantly more, just because when something breaks on this, you just replace that part. So up front, it's kind of a bigger investment for a little bit less performance, but you do in the long run save more, which is an interesting value proposition. Battery life on it's great. Performance is more than acceptable. I mean, it's not a gaming machine, but it's still more than enough for most productivity tasks, for basic video editing, for even some stuff in Blender. I really enjoyed it. Now, the 7840U is fine if you wanted to play a game like Starfield or Cyberpunk or whatever. You're just not going to get crazy high frame rates. And then there's this. This is a Razer Blade with a 2080 Super, I think. And this machine is build-wise and feel-wise a lot closer to the MacBook Pro.
The biggest difference is webcam quality and speaker quality. The MacBook Pro is just way better on both of those. It's also way better on battery life. The Blade's battery life is abysmal, much shorter than either the Framework or the MacBook. But the reason this is sitting out here is because this thing has some pretty gnarly performance for gaming, even, with an older GPU. A 2080 Super's not a bad GPU at all. It's got a 300 hertz panel on it, and the build is just really nice feeling. This laptop is $550. You can get these around $550 to $650 on eBay all day long. And in pretty good shape with very few battery cycles, all kinds of stuff like that. The Blade, you can still replace the battery on it. You can still replace the RAM on it. You can still replace the screen on it, things like that if they break. It's not as easy to do as it is with the Framework, but it's possible. Now, those parts might not always be available for the Blade, versus Framework continuing to provide support as long as the company, hopefully exists, then Apple just not providing parts replacement at all. It is a different value proposition, because you could buy one of these, get, some spare parts, and have a really, really competent machine for, a third of the price of the Framework or a quarter of the price of the Mac. That's pretty compelling. And I think it really comes down to what your needs are. Having modularity is extremely nice because the microphone built into this Framework was not great. And being able to just make a little microphone module that sounds notably better, super easy, really cool. Not something that I can do on a lot of machines. If I want to plug it up to an external display, I can just swap out the module for DisplayPort or HDMI or whatever. Just whatever I need, I basically always have the ports for. I mean, someone could really make a DAC amp module that could fit right into one of these. That would be sweet. I'd love to do it myself. I don't have the time to put into it right now, but that would be really, really cool. A little 4.4 millimeter Pentacon, something with decent power, slap it in, good to go. The Framework also runs a lot cooler than the Blade does. The Blade is like a nuclear furnace, and I have to put it on a lap desk because it will burn my legs. I think that if you are doing tons of video work, graphic design, stuff like that, there is not really another option besides the MacBook Pro if your primary focus is productivity. If your main focus is gaming and you want to have decent graphics capabilities and stuff like that, picking up a used gaming laptop seems like a pretty sweet deal, especially something like this. For $500, that kind of performance is pretty awesome. Well, $550 to $650. And then there is this right in the middle, a machine that is oriented towards productivity. Someone who's going to be doing lots of spreadsheets and maybe doing some code, maybe occasionally gaming. You could do video editing and graphic design on it, though the screen's not quite as good and it's not going to be as performant as the Mac. Still gets good battery life, but in the long run will be a computer that you can keep and keep and keep and just continue using year after year, repair it, modify it however you want to do so, and upgrade it whenever they come out with a more powerful CPU / integrated GPU. You can just pop this out and pop that in. I'm going to be getting the RISC-V mainboard for this as soon as it's available. In fact, Framework also released some Core Ultra chips available on mainboards that have the, I think, 155H, the Intel Arc graphics. That's pretty cool. So these laptops are continuing to evolve. And I think that it's a laptop that doesn't do any one thing besides repairability perfectly, but the value proposition that you get from a machine that has such an intense level of longevity and customization is pretty neat. Something else that's pretty neat is if you're using this with Fedora Linux, it just includes the BIOS updates, so you don't have to go through and manually download packages and all that stuff and then put it on a drive and then update the BIOS. You can just tell it to update in the actual software manager of Fedora, and it will update the BIOS for you, which is really, really cool. These machines are great with Linux. You can use Windows on it just fine, Windows 11, anything like that. But really, I think you get the best experience on a Framework if you were using something like Fedora or Mint. I personally prefer the Debian edition of Mint, if that's what you're going to be using. Fedora runs like a dream on it too. Again, Windows is fine. But with Mint, I just found myself getting longer battery life, more consistent standby battery. So whenever I would leave this computer in my bag in sleep or hibernate or suspend, whatever you want to call it, for a day or two, in Windows, I would come to the computer and it'd be dead. Versus on Debian Mint or on Fedora, I would come back and it would have barely less battery than when I suspended it to begin with, which is pretty sweet. And here's the thing, it's not up to me to make the decision for you guys. you already know if you want this thing. You already know if you want a repairable laptop or not. It just depends on if you want to take the plunge on it. I think it's a really cool ecosystem. This is a computer that I hope to have for an extremely long time that will evolve with my needs for it. Obviously, I have other laptops here that I use for other things. Most of the work I do on the channel is on this MacBook, almost all of it. Some of the games I play at home, I play on this Blade just because it's just the most performant of the three when it comes to things like gaming. If I'm playing, Tarkov or something like that, or if I'm playing Hades 2 and I want to be able to take advantage of that 300 hertz panel, this is the way to do it. But this one in the middle, it can do a little bit of everything. I can travel with it and edit videos on it if I need to. I can use it for, all of the things that I do involving web browsing, including some CAD work. And I can play some games on there too. I could play like City Skylines or Hades or Hyper Light Drifter or Risk of Rain. It runs Risk of Rain surprisingly well. The second one, which they really need to come out with that DLC. What's up with that? I've been waiting for that for a while. I'm not going to post anything about like frame rates and stuff like that. There's a million videos on YouTube, people benchmarking these, but I wanted to talk about some of the things that I don't see people talking about as often with these computers, and put it side by side with some other interesting value propositions. Because again, this is a $550 laptop that is really nicely built and really performant, which kind of brings all of this into question. But I think you can look at these and know which one it is that you actually want. I mean, shoot, I grew up with the Pentium 2, and then by the time I really got into gaming, there were things like the Core 2 Quad, the Q6600, the 8800 GTS, and people were like, that is the bee's knees. You could play Crysis and get like 26 FPS, which was unheard of. And the integrated graphics on this, I believe, are on par with a 1660 Ti or a 1650 Ti, one of those two, which is significantly better than anything I ever grew up with, and at a fraction of the power consumption. I could very easily live with this as my only machine if I needed to, which I definitely think says something about how good integrated graphics we've gotten and how good of a machine this is at its core. And this is all you really need, but in a sense, so is this, and so is this. The rest is up to you guys. If you're a Linux person, leave a comment down below. I want to know what you guys think. What do you run? There's so many different distros and so many people who are like really passionate about specific things, but I'm just kind of curious. From one open source nerd to maybe another. Between the three of these, which laptop would you personally use? I would like to know. Aside from that, let's wrap up this video, guys. If you liked it, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can have the Discord or the forum, both available at the link in the video description. So always don't forget to stick around, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And until the next one, guys. Peace.